Welcome to another weekly discussion about the markets from TreasuryONE. I'm Cilliers, Head of Market Risk and dealing at TreasuryONE. And we are joined today by our currency strategist, Cilliers. So, Andre, last week we discussed what's happening in the US elections. What has changed in the past week that we need to be aware of?
Well, it's an interesting one that if I look at the polls, then there's a bit of a narrowing between the front running of Mr. Biden. So that seems to be narrowing, and I would definitely not put Mr. Trump out of the equation. I'm of the opinion that he's still very much in the running, and that with him coming through right at the end on a win could upset the apple cart quite significantly and change the outlook for the dollar quite significantly.
Yeah, that's what we've been seeing as well. And the US stimulus plan that needs to be approved by the Senate. What's the news on that front?
You know that one day it's on and the next day it's off. Nancy Pelosi and the Republicans are still at loggerheads as to whether it will be approved this week or whether it will not be approved. Now, in my opinion, if it does not get approved this week, then it will stand over till after the elections. And then only after the elections and the outcome of the elections will a decision be made on that stimulus plan. But it looks to me that they want to get the checks out to the people of the Americas, some $1.2 trillion that they want to get out in checks to the consumers for money to be spent in the economy, because their economy is not doing as well as they wanted it to do. And with the second wave of the virus infections, people's money are running out and jobs are not being created.
You've just touched on a very important point that's flaring up across Europe, and there's talks about South Africa maybe having a second wave of COVID-19. How do you see that playing out in the financial markets?
Well, in terms of the financial markets, we've got the European Central Bank meeting this week, and we can expect that Mrs. Lagarde will definitely come out and say loud and clear that they will support economies, countries that goes into lockdown. They will support the economy, and they will, if necessary, print more cash to do so. We can expect that to happen. The infection wave in Europe is looking very, very bad. The cases up to 52,000 yesterday in France, the highest ever, so not looking good. I've heard this morning that apparently Mr. Ramaphosa will address South Africa sometime this week. I do not think that the speculation of another lockdown is quite on the cards at this point. It's simply a question of, I think he will address the nation and ask for the people to adhere to the regulations. And I think it must be very, very clearly put that if we do not want to adhere to the regulations and we do get further lockdowns in South Africa, then we will be having to accept responsibility for that as South Africans ourselves and not blame it on the government. The government has done what they can. It's now up to us to adhere to the regulations.
So you've touched on regulations and all that need to be adhered to, but we've also have the medium-term budget speech later in this week by Mr. Mboweni. How likely is that to be any good news for the country?
Well, I read in the news that everybody is waiting to see whether he's going to make any announcement on taxes, whether he's going to make an announcement on the cutting of the wage bill, and things like that. And I think that is, you know, in the last 10 medium-term budget speeches that I've listened to, there's never been any tax cuts. There's never been any indications of how you curb down on your spending. They simply say something that says that you will curb down on your spending, but no specifics. That's for the budget speech. The medium-term budget speech is more of an evaluation of the current situation as to where we stand. The one that we really look towards to is Mr. Ramaphosa, and I said that last week, had announced the recovery plan, the economic recovery plan, and what we are looking towards this medium-term budget speech is information as to how the money will be made available and how bad the statistics are looking in terms of this year's revenue collection, the deficit before borrowings, etc. That's the vital statistics that we need to get, and that's what we're looking for, and I think that's going to be bad, and we might very well see a bit of an effect on the rand trading up to the actual date of the 28th.
So last question, you talked about the rand. With all this possible stimulus package from the US, the ECB was looking to print if people run out of money, medium-term budget speeches coming up. How do we trade the volatility in the rand that we probably can see in the next week or so?
Okay, well, if you look at what the currency has done over the last couple of months, then we are trading at exceptionally good levels comparatively to what we've seen over the last 3 months. So from an importer perspective, for the very short term, I would take advantage of the levels that we are seeing and see to it that I take some forward cover and manage my exposure in terms of forward cover and get rid of that for the short term. Longer term, I would wait a little bit. But on the export side, if I was an exporter, I would place my orders at levels slightly higher than what we are now. But I will place my levels so that if we reach it on a bit of a spike because of some bad news or whatever, that we do get triggered on those orders and not actually sit and wait for it to happen.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.